Now, the five-nation East African Community Economic Bloc recently signed an agreement to adopt a common currency. This is to create a monetary union aimed at lowering transaction costs in the region by eliminating losses incurred in exchange rates. Earlier, we crossed to Washington, D.C. to speak with Jonathan Berman, Senior Fellow at Columbia University, for a closer look at the benefits and challenges of integration in the region. Jonathan, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Perhaps you can give us a sense of how Washington has reacted to the passing of Nelson Mandela before we get into our interview.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me this morning. As you can see, it's still behind me. It's still pretty early in Washington. It's about 5:30 in the morning, and on the way into the studio, I happened to pass the South African embassy and stop for a moment at the statue there of Madiba, which is, covered all the way up above the pedestal with flowers and candles. His impact here is very strong. People have a powerful and lasting memory of him, and will for a long time. I think also Americans have taken note at our presence at the ceremony today, with every living president who can fly there. That was a notable, interesting point to me. It's extraordinarily rare for the sitting president and all former presidents to attend a memorial service.
Of course, a time in South Africa where we're both mourning but also celebrating a great life. Now, perhaps let's look at the idea of integration, which is really at the top of our conversation today. Obviously not a new idea, but how is East Africa's integration process moving forward on the back of this monetary union protocol?
So really, I think it actually moved forward on the front of the monetary union protocol. The effort towards a common market and towards a reduction and elimination of tariff barriers are really precursors to the monetary union. And I think the aspiration will be that the move towards monetary union will accelerate those processes, which have stalled over the last couple of years.
What are the tangible trade benefits that the region is likely to realize from this integration?
So I think there's many. Perhaps the most important are intra-regional opportunities to trade with one another. East Africa already leads the continent in that regard, but there's clearly more opportunity to do more. Looking internationally, I think it's clear that investors and corporations worldwide are waiting to see which parts of Africa integrate the fastest. Without that, what you're looking at are very fragmented markets that most companies would just skip over entirely. But with that integration and a market of 140 million or more, a lot of companies will sit up and take notice. To give just one example, the opportunities in natural resources in East Africa are obviously tremendous, but the opportunities to really develop a long-lasting local supply chain for that region and for resources worldwide is dependent on being able to do that regionally. You can't do that country by country.
Of course, the idea of a monetary union has been alive in East Africa, at least since 2009, and perhaps the pace towards that process has been slowed down by the trade-offs that the winners and the losers likely have to make to reach that point. From where you stand, who do you think stands to benefit the most, and who likely is going to lose the most from this process?
So, Nosy, I think it's going to have to be a process in which at least each of the countries sees itself as having some winners within it. But I do think that Kenya and particularly Nairobi stand out as likely winners. Nairobi, in particular, as an emerging hub not only of East Africa, but really of all of at least Anglophone Africa. It takes a big step forward if the regional integration moves forward. I think that the losers you might be concerned about are not particular countries within the region, but rather those who are dislocated by the change in trade, basically at the base of the pyramid in each of the countries. Poor people or working class people who are moving, whose opportunities are changing and shifting from country to country. And for them, I think there'll need to be a powerful social safety net, more powerful than you've seen in other regional integrations.
Do you see this monetary union significantly changing trade patterns for the entire continent with some of its external trade partners?
Yeah, I think there's two external partners that are affected most notably by it. And again, I'll think about it in terms of cities. I think Dubai, Johannesburg, and to a certain extent Cape Town, all are in competition with Nairobi and other major capitals in East Africa for prominence in East African trade. For example, a lot of trade and repackaging of goods and services is done currently in Dubai for all of East Africa. Right, Dubai is almost the hub of the region. That can change significantly if the region comes into greater integration, and you'll see more of those activities take place in the region itself.
Are there any potential pitfalls that you see, Jonathan, that could rise as red flags should countries not have the policy fundamentals in place to make sure that they're able to benefit from this integration process?
Yes, I think there's two that stand out to me in particular. One I mentioned earlier, which is not having sufficient social inclusion programs in place as this is moving forward. That's a mistake, frankly, that I think was made in the North American integration, and I don't think that I think that both our times and the place are very different in Africa today, and over the next 10 years. I think were that to happen, and you didn't see that net in place to help people in the transition, there would be significant social dislocation, and political resistance might derail the entire process. The other thing that I think about is debt to GDP ratios. This is what you see in Europe: is that debt outstripped national revenues significantly across countries in the southern tier, creating tension throughout the Union. I'm positive that the East African governments will be learning from that experience and preparing for it. It's a good time to be thinking about it because several of those countries, as mentioned earlier, will have new revenues in the form of resources coming on stream. At the same time, they also have new access to debt instruments, as we've seen over the last 18 months. So I think I'm positive that they're taking the warning signals from Europe. I think the timing is good to get that equation right and get the policies in place today.